Hi, friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast, where our conversation will encourage your healthy living journey. Inspired by our Team Quadzilla coaching motto, Healthy Living Starts Between Your Ears, we talk about mental fitness in ways that challenge us to think about our thinking regarding topics like habits, leadership, exercise, values, marriage, parenting, and faith. Our hope with this podcast is to sharpen you as we sharpen ourselves to be all we were made to be. So let's dive right into the conversation on this episode of Mental Fitness Unscripted.
I forgot to tell you to smile.
Cheese.
Jeez, got to come into the intro here with the smile.
That's right. Yeah. Need some happy background music or something.
Yeah, I need a theme or something. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Right.
Good morning, Chad.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Hello. Yeah, likewise.
Celebrating the Spartans today, huh?
Yes. Yeah, there's a big basketball game tonight, and we'll see what happens. It'll happen while I'm asleep because it's very late, but
Ooh, time zone deal, huh?
yeah. Anyway.
So, are you
Yeah.
people are big? Is that the name of your book?
Oh, yes. Yes, this is something I'm working through right now.
People are big. Oh, when people are big.
When people are big and God is small. This is a whole idea about fear of man
Hmm.
and how easy it is for us to worry a lot more about what other people think of us or even what we think of ourselves, and how that messes with our um, outlook and esteem and that type of thing. So yeah, it hits me close.
Yeah. Well, you're not the only one. Everybody deals with that.
Yeah, and that's how the book starts. Is like this book is actually for everybody.
Yeah.
So
No,
um,
it's a real deal. It's a real deal.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
cool. You have brought up a subject. Again, we just kind of did it off the cuff. What do you want to talk about? Well, I don't know. If you don't, anyway.
yeah.
But you have brought up a subject. I think we can have a lot of fun here. So I'll let
Yeah.
I'll let you introduce it.
Okay. Yeah. So the big idea today is um, the problem is not really the problem. And so before anybody turns it off because this sounds like a bunch of mental gymnastics, hang with me for a second. I think if we're honest with ourselves, um, it's pretty easy to see that oftentimes the thing that we think is the problem is really just a symptom of what is actually the problem. And so um, let me see if I can think of an easy example of that. So for instance, a lot of us, self included, can run to the pantry or the refrigerator when we are stressed. And so we end up feeling unhealthy or gaining weight or whatever. And so we think the answer is, well, I just need to eat less. But really, that's not the problem so much as the stress part. We haven't dealt with the stress, we've only dealt with the food. And so if the stress is still there, we're simply going to find something else to replace the food part and not have ever dealt with what is this stress? Is this something that I need to change other habits for, or change my outlook about the thing? Or, that's more of the root, right? So maybe that's a silly example, but it's just off the top of my head of an idea where we're focusing on a symptom rather than the root of the problem. And so then we can say the problem is not really the problem. And so I want to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Isn't it interesting? I was thinking of an example. I just had a cold sore under my
Mm,
nose. Okay. I treat the sore, but there's a source that's providing that sore for a reason.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, it's a virus or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Okay, but what do? We treat the symptom usually, right? And here's where I think we're going to have a little bit of fun. I saw a video just the other day. This guy set up a trail cam out in the forest, and he put a full length mirror on a tree.
Oh boy.
Okay,
Yeah,
and you
I can
can't.
imagine.
You can kind of see the mirror, but you can. So it's sideways to the trail cam.
Mm.
He must have put some attractant, maybe it was food or some attractant. Anyway, this bear shows up and it's kind of rooting around, and all of a sudden it magically sees, or it's surprised by this other bear,
Yeah, right.
and
In front of his nose, and then he freaks out. Yeah.
it just tears into this mirror. And because it's fighting back, it just increases, and I mean it just totally destroys that full length mirror. But it's interesting that the bear, it doesn't look behind the mirror to see what's providing is there really a bear there? It
Hmm.
just immediately treats the symptom.
Oh,
And
that's
we,
perfect.
and we do that so often. Oh man, if I could just stay out of the pantry. And
Mm.
to your point, what we're not doing is we're not dealing with the stress. And
Yeah.
here's another funny thing, and I don't mean to go sideways here, but what's funny is we want to reduce the stress,
Hmm.
which is interesting. Life is stress. It's all in how we receive it and how we deal with it. And by trying to reduce the stress, I believe that we actually enhance the stress.
Mm. Well, because really I think the stress is really more of a symptom.
It is. It
You
is.
know,
Yep.
we can totally inception concept this whole thing in that there's multiple layers down.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If somebody would just do what I want them to do, we put it outside of ourselves and then we
Yeah.
stress over it rather than look at ourselves and
Hmm.
say, okay, how am I receiving what's happening here? And how can I deal with
Yeah.
this in a positive note? Rather than abdicating, oh, it's somebody else's problem. I need to reduce my stress, so I'm not going to talk to
Yeah.
that person, or anyway. Like I say, that's a whole different rabbit hole we can go down. But to your point, it's really interesting that the bear sees a problem. There's another bear there after whatever that attractant is, the food, the
Yeah.
bait, whatever it was. There's another bear there, and rather than deal with it and just look at it, and I understand animals are instinctive. There's another rabbit hole we can go down, but rather than take a moment and say, okay, is there really a bear here? And I know the bear wouldn't do that, like I said. But we have the opportunity as humans to stop and say, okay, is this really the problem? And to your
Yeah.
point, the problem's usually not the problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to go as high as 99% of the time, it's not the problem.
Right. And so we say this all the time that because we don't, because we are running on this hamster wheel of life, we don't slow down enough to actually process and think about what is really happening. And so that's part of the mission today is to just bring to light an idea that is very real for everybody. And we may not be as clever as we think about identifying root cause. There's a whole thing in my business of engineering where it's root cause analysis, right? You want to get to the base source of what is actually the problem, and then now you're solving something.
Yeah.
We don't do that very well in our everyday.
Yeah. Back to your inception idea of,
Yeah,
let's take this to the next level. Where do we end up here? What's really
yeah,
causing this?
yeah, yeah. So I don't, my aim is not to answer that question of what is really causing it, but I do have some ideas for what very likely is causing a lot of it.
Okay.
And I can only speak from my own experience, but what I find is that as I speak from my own experience to other people, I see a lot more of head nodding, yes, I relate, I agree, than I thought, because I, like many other people, assume that my problems are unique. And in reality, uh, all of our problems are very common, and we really need to bring them to light, I think, and to recognize that we're very much in the same predicament. And I mean, I could tangent off of that for a whole nother subject too,
Oh
but
yeah.
just this idea that we really need to slow down and think about what is really going on, what is really the root cause of our problem. And so, anyway, um, my point was that I don't aim to solve that for everyone, because it is going to be different for
Oh
everyone. But I
yeah.
do have a couple of ideas about that, but I'm talking too much. So what do you think?
Well, I have a direction I want to take this, so go ahead and talk about that. I have a way to kind of tie a bow on this for you.
Okay. All right.
I don't
All
know,
right.
but we're 10 minutes away from ending, so
Okay.
how much do you want here?
Well, go ahead. Let's hear it. What do
Well,
you got?
I love how you started this. The problem's not the problem, okay? And so when we see the symptom and we say it's first of all, what we're doing is we're judging it.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, we're
Yes.
giving some value to it, whether it's good or bad, usually. Okay.
Hmm.
And we've had this discussion in a religious
Yeah.
sense before, but we take it at face value, and the bear looking in the mirror immediately said, "Hey, this is bad." Okay, painted the picture just immediately, and we have that tendency to have an initial reaction to things. Okay, back to that, just take a moment, take a breath, really look at it. But what we do is we tend to judge it first of all and say, well, this is a problem. Okay, so some people look at puzzles and go, oh, this is a problem, and paint it very differently than it's a bad problem. They look at it as, oh, this is a problem I've got to solve. I get to solve
Mhm.
this, and they paint it very differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the perspective of the challenge in front of them. Yeah, you can
Exactly.
take it multiple ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one pushes us away from it. Oh, it's bad. So I'm in this retreat thing, or
Hmm.
I go into the fight mode. And
Hmm.
the other, so you've got the flight or fight mode, or the other one says, I need to embrace this and figure this out.
Yeah.
One says, I've got to get away. The other one says, I embrace it and take it on. Okay.
Mm. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So let me give you an example. Have you ever gone shopping for something that it's maybe a part for your bicycle or something? Okay.
Okay.
It's unique. It's not going to just pop up because you looked for it. And so what you do is you find a bunch of pictures or whatever mode that you go through, but it's kind of like a catalog. And what do you end up doing on the website? Oh, that's not quite right. And so what do? We swipe. Okay.
Hmm.
And we make a decision. Have you ever done that? And you get going along, and then you have this memory of one that you swiped past, and you go, well, wait a minute, maybe. And then you go back to it, and you find that on further reflection and looking at it a little bit differently or a little more carefully, that it was the right thing.
Mm. Yes.
Have you ever done that?
Yep.
And we all have. Okay.
Hmm.
Because we have this picture in our mind sometimes, and it's just so easy to click and run or to just swipe. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. And we just get in that mode and we judge everything just based on that. I can quickly
Yeah.
run away from this. Okay. Rather than studying and going back and going, okay, is it really that? Okay.
Mm.
So we get into that swipe mode, and that's okay. That protects us. But I think at the same time, we don't go in with the full picture of what the problem,
Yeah.
okay, is. Now, I went through this gymnastics to get to this point. The Stoics, the ancient Stoics, Socrates, Plato, others, okay, they said the obstacle is the way.
Mm.
And so here's what I'm going to suggest is that the problem is probably the solution
Mm.
or will bring us to the solution.
Okay. Possibly. So in a sense, you're saying the the opposite of where we started, or am I reading you wrong?
No, 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 no. No, the problem is not the problem because usually we take it
Okay.
at face value and we swipe past it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And we
Yeah.
we and we do it to run from it and say, oh, it's the government's fault or
Mm.
um I don't want to get political here, but there are people that swipe past that and say, well, it's somebody else's fault that I'm not receiving whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than doing that, what this is doing is it's showing them a problem that they've had in their life that they've just been swiping past that can bring them to a better solution than what they're currently or what they were currently at before the problem showed.
Yeah.
All it's doing is visibly showing them, hey, there's something behind what you're experiencing now that you've
Mm.
had already. It's kind of like my cold sore. I had the
Yeah.
virus, cold sore showed up, and so I had to just take care of myself a little bit better. Okay, a little zinc, a little vitamin C, blah, blah, blah. Okay, where am I going with this? A problem just shows something that we've been carrying with us and allows us to just stop and say, how do I solve that problem? So the problem is the solution, or the problem will bring us to the solution.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
problem,
So
the problem's not the problem because the virus it's not the cold sore, it's the virus.
yeah.
And so I'm not disagreeing with how we started. The problem's not the problem.
Yeah. But if we automatically judge it in such a way that we just flee, then we're not actually getting anywhere nearer to the solution. So in that sense, yes, I agree 100% that it's presenting you with the opportunity to solve
Yep.
the
So the
problem.
obstacle is the way. Yeah, the
Yeah,
obstacle is the way.
yeah. Hmm.
I told you I was going to take this a really weird direction.
No, I think that's helpful though, because it's a reminder that in such times we need to take courage and
Mhm.
and look for the path through and not necessarily just suppress, ignore, or run from, because that's not going to fix it. And I think in some cases, if we're honest with ourselves, if I'm honest with myself, that's a pretty natural first reaction is, well, here's this thing, it's
Right.
uncomfortable, I don't like it, I'm just going to swipe and run away.
Yep.
And that doesn't remedy anything. So, yeah.
I don't know, something for
Fair.
you to think about. How do you feel about it? I mean, it's a new idea, it looks like.
Yeah, no, no, that's helpful, for sure. Like I said, it's we have to slow down enough to make a different evaluation. Is this, in some cases, I think it would be appropriate for whatever's the problem presented, that fleeing is the best
Oh,
way,
yeah.
but we need to be very conscious about how or why it is that we're choosing that.
Well, and also be willing to relook at it. Back to your bicycle part, you've got that memory of, man, I saw it. It was close. I wonder. And then you go
Mhm.
back and find out it was really the thing.
Yep.
Okay. So we've got to be open to revisiting it and not just divorcing it and saying, you know,
Right.
that's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
And we can take this a ton of different directions. We can say, well, blame, fault, we can get caught up in that. It really comes down to this. If somebody did it to me, I still have a responsibility to respond to it somehow. Whether
Hmm.
I run away from it, whether I embrace it, whether however I respond, I'm responsible for.
Yes.
Okay. And, we've talked about consequence before. Not
Hmm.
making a decision is making a decision. It brings a consequence, or making a decision, you know, sometimes that puts us in control of the
Yeah.
consequence. I choose this consequence, so I'm going to respond this way.
Very true. How many more minutes do we have? Are we about done?
Um, no, I,
No?
I don't have a
We're
time.
good?
I don't have a time
Okay.
limit, so
Yeah, I think
we're good for a
we're
minute.
probably, all right.
I haven't received
So
the 4 minute warning here.
okay, let me offer another angle to
Okay.
this. And we have talked about this before, but you'd have to probably go way back to the first few episodes when we talked about extreme ownership.
Mm,
And I think that part of the answer to the problem is not the problem, is that we, self included, are not taking extreme ownership for ourselves and for the things that we can control. And part of the solution that I think is in our nature to run from is to not deal with the biggest problem, which is ourselves. And another way I've heard this put is, in a relationship context, in particular in marriage. Tim Keller says in his book, The Meaning of Marriage, he says when both partners in a marriage can recognize that the greatest obstacle or problem in their marriage is themselves and not the other person, then you stand a chance of having a whole and healthy relationship. So the point is the same as in extreme ownership. It's okay, very likely whatever is the root of the problem has something to do with me, and I need to sort that out. You said it earlier, it's not the government, it's not your mama, it's
yeah.
not some other circumstance, it's how we respond and what we're going to do about it. And so solving whatever is the problem very often comes down to self and dealing with our issues and our ways of thinking in a healthy and proper way.
Yep. I like it.
So I think we've given two important aspects to the question here at the start, and I am encouraged by it.
Yeah. I I'm human. I still respond instinctively to a problem, but I've trained myself to step back. To your point, just retreat, and a tactical retreat is okay. It gives you
Mm,
space. It gives you just that moment, and it doesn't take long. I mean, it could just be a millisecond, but just that step
mm,
back thing gives us an option of how do I want this to turn out? What consequence do I want? Do I want to ratchet this up and take it to maybe it's a violent outcome, or what whatever it is. Do I really want to do that? Is that the consequence I want, or
mm,
do I disarm this, or how do I respond to this? And I, I I know we've talked about this tons of times, and it's just a reminder for me, because I do react like any other human, but I can still step back. And even though I swiped past, I can go
mm.
back and go, let's relook at this. How do I want this outcome? And Chad, you've alluded to this. It's a decision. It's a decision on how I look at the problem. The problem is not the problem.
Yes. There's our bow. Wrapped it up.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mental Fitness Unscripted podcast. Now go take some action, because we know that information alone doesn't change you, but taking even the smallest action in the right direction does. Also, subscribe and comment so more people can find the podcast and be encouraged. If you're ready to take your mental fitness to the next level and you'd like more support, check out teamquadzilla.com for our resources that will help you accelerate your journey. Until next time, remember, healthy living starts between your ears.